Part 29. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 281. Change the formula. The old magician stopped his spell, looked down at Gretel, and frowned slightly. What, you are not satisfied with this wall? He was vaguely unhappy. Fossils can be turned into mud, and mud can be turned into stone. These two brothers are both level 5 spells of the transformation system. In other words, only a level 9 mage can operate them. However, he personally took action as a 14th level great magician and a member of the jury. The hardness and fineness of the stone and the precision of the shaping were far ahead of those of mid-level mages. Why, the little guy still dislikes one thing and the other. But he saw a buried, motionless head and an open palm. Greet squatted in a ball on the ground, holding forward the magic materials that turned mud into stone, sand, lime, water, with his palms in front of him. His voice was confused, as if he was desperately trying to remember something. No. I mean, sand, lime, water, isn't this cement? Cement plus gravel and water is concrete. Different formulas have different functions, some are quick drying, some are wear resistant, some are acid and alkali resistant, some are high temperature resistant, and some are particularly frost resistant, impermeable, and crack resistant. You must try this one by one. The old magician was silent. He has cast the spell of turning mud into stone countless times over the decades, and it is true that it is slightly different every time. Moreover, this difference does not seem to have anything to do with his spell control. He couldn't help but squat down and look into Gretel's eyes, and asked. Cement? Mix. The words got stuck here. After thinking for a while, he awkwardly repeated the word he heard for the first time. Concrete? What is that? Do you know the recipe? I don't know, Gretel said very confidently. I am a healer. I know that sand, lime, and water can be mixed together to make cement. No, it seems that clay and lime can be burned into cement at high temperatures. Cement plus sand, water, gravel, etc. Yes, it can be mixed into concrete. No extraordinary strength is needed, ordinary people can also make it. But which formula produces what result? Then, I have to try them one by one. I know that there are several types of cement. It seems that it is burnt with lime, burnt with sand, and burnt with bauxite, volcanic ash. Everything is made from fly ash and slag. His voice became quieter as he spoke later, and he shrank down, almost curling up into a ball. He himself feels that this method of I know the direction, but you have to try the details is really a bit irresponsible. The problem is that he really doesn't know. He majors in medicine, not architecture or materials science. I heard these differences between cement and concrete from talking to the workers on the construction site when the hospital was building a new building. If you ask him to give you the formula, the ratio of different formulas and different properties of cement, you can't do it even if you kill his head. The old magician really wanted to complain about Gretel. However, before the words were spoken, he had already heard old Sam complaining softly to others from behind him. This kid is here again. Ah, yes, it was the same last time when Mithril was smelted. Given a direction, a group of great magicians and their disciples, hundreds of people tried to go there day and night. This little guy turned around and went off to do other things. After tinkering with disinfectant, he also produced plague seeds in the laboratory. So, if you are harming the Perfection School, are you here to harm their transformation school? What's even more irritating is that old Grom, the necromancer, is still showing off sinisterly. Little Gretel never gives us things like this, he always makes them completely before submitting them. There was never any thought of using us as tools. Is he treating you well? That's because I'm afraid you'll get into trouble. Plague is a thing that spreads throughout the city if a spy gets a little bit of it. If you start playing around with it regardless of the severity, wouldn't the whole city be wiped out? The old magician really wanted to stand up and beat that guy up. Oh, by the way, you can't hit Gretel here, and you should knock his brains out. But the little guy's eyes are very sincere. I think it would be more convenient to cast the spell if the casting material was changed to cement, sand, or gravel. Cement with different formulas and labels can be prepared in advance to facilitate control of the concrete type when casting. Also, the compressive strength of concrete is high, but the tensile strength is not high. If you add steel bars into the wall, the reinforced concrete will be stronger, or when you build the building, you can add steel bars as casting materials and try it out to see the effect. Do you still want the mage tower? Veins on the old magician's forehead jumped wildly. We have to try this and that. After so many experiments, several years have passed. For the foundation wall of the mage tower, you decide what kind of stone you want. Hey, don't bully our kids. Old Sam suddenly came over and stood in front of him. Is there a research direction for you? You are not interested? Thunderhorn will take it back for research. It's not like we don't have high-level mages. If you come up with something later, you can pay for it? No, the old man said anxiously. Why are you doing this in the plasticity department? This is not your strong point. Leave it to us, we will study it and give him a share later. Little Greet, what share ratio do you want? Gretel gave him a confused look, stood up decisively, and stood next to old Sam. I don't know, it's up to you. Anyway, we have high-level mages in Thunderhorn, you can't cheat me. Old magician. Old Sam, rightward arrow. Rightward arrow. Are you using me as a negotiating tool? In any case, the construction of the mage tower that Gretel has been thinking about has begun step by step. Gretel is indeed curious about various cement materials, but 10 birds in the forest are not as good as one in hand. It is more important to get his mage tower quickly. The worst thing is, wait for the School of Change to experiment with new materials, and then ask them to modify it. Anyway, new cement and new magic also have their own share, right? The review committee member of the change department was just happy to see Hunter Xin, and he cast a spell to build 2 stone walls. If he really wanted to build the mage tower, he would have to rely on the construction team of the parliament. They have magic circles, many spell casting materials, and most importantly, blueprints. Greet stood next to the foundation, watching the 4 high-level mages open the magic circle, compare the drawings, and join forces to cast spells. After a long spell, a large earth elemental, or stone elemental, stood up in the magic circle. After all, it is smooth, dense, and slightly reflective. It looks like a high-grade stone. The stone man squatted down and curled up into a ball, as if listening to the magician's explanations and descriptions. After listening for a long time, he walked out of the magic circle and jumped into the foundation pit. Gretel couldn't help blurting out. Why? Such a big stone man, please don't destroy my foundation. Miraculously, this stone man, which was 3 people tall and weighed at least 7 or 8 tons, made no movement at all when he jumped down, as if it had merged with the foundation silently. The 4 high-level mages spoke more urgently. After chanting for a long time, they suddenly raised their arms at the same time. Rise. Smooth, dense, and dark walls rise from the ground, getting taller and longer. This tower is a common style for mage towers, with an octagonal tower body, 3 floors underground and 9 floors above ground. Because it is a high-level mage tower, the number of floors has been specially added. The tower is thicker at the bottom and thinner at the top. The outer wall is slightly tilted inward, but the tilt is not large. The bottom floor of the mage tower has a radius reduced by 20% compared to the top floor. The mage tower is quite high. Unlike the residential buildings Gretel saw in his previous life, The floor height was 2.8 meters and the clear height of the living room was 2.4 meters. Mages like an open environment. Each floor of this wizard tower is more than 3.5 meters, including the thickness of the ceiling is almost 4 meters. The 9-story tower rose straight from the ground. Greed stood on the edge and looked up, his eyes following the tower as it kept getting higher and higher. Ouch, he raised his head too much and almost lost his balance. The tower has 8 sides, with 3 windows on each side. Of course, from the 2nd floor to the 4th floor, which is the ground part of the P4 laboratory, there are no windows in the red zone. Not only are there no windows, the entire wall is tight and there is no gap to the outside. The outer wall reached its highest point and folded inward to form a pointed sloping roof. There were also a few bells hung under the 8 eaves. Greed once thought about making hollow eaves on each floor, and then making a circle of balconies and railings around the tower, but was severely rejected by the magician in charge of the project. What does it look like? The Mage Tower has never been like this. Do you think the magic tower is too safe and you want to provide a place for thieves to climb the wall and catch them? Actually, what I'm thinking of is Chinese-style buildings like the Yellow Crane Tower and the Six Harmonies Pagoda. Gretel paused. Thinking again about the lab theft incident, maybe he followed this plan and installed anti-theft windows on every floor? That visual effect is terrifying just thinking about it. Professional magicians work together to cast spells, and the construction speed is incredibly fast. For a building with 3 floors underground and 9 floors above ground, from the time the foundation is laid to the capping of the structure, in Gretel's previous life, it would have been at least 3 months, at least half a month for each of the 3 underground floors, and each floor after plus or minus 0.5 days, the top level is slower, about 10 days. However, in just about 2 hours now, the outer walls and roof of the Mage Tower have taken shape. Gretel waited for another hour. The 4 magicians stopped their spells and breathed a long sigh of relief. On the wall of the Mage Tower, from flat to convex, the outline of a stone elemental man emerged, gradually separated, and jumped out. When he stood in front of everyone, he had shrunk by half the size he had just appeared. Okay, it's fine inside at this time, most of the judges had dispersed, and only the old magician from the change department was still standing, accompanying Gretel as he watched the wizard's tower. Seeing the stone element appear, he pointed at the tower and smiled at Gretel. The rooms, floors, and stairs have all been built. The element pool, magic defense, etc. are matters for the protection system and the conjuration system. We have to wait for a few more days. How about it, do you want to go in and take a look first? Not satisfied? If so, you can still adjust it now. In half a day, he completed the work that took several months in his previous life. Regardless of production costs, mages are worthy of being the #1 productive force. Thank you all for your subscriptions, monthly votes, recommendation votes, and rewards. The author works hard to write. It feels like 5 additional updates will soon become 6. Thank you. Was it an adverb just now? I gave you 1,500 starting coins as a reward on the way to Zhong'er 2. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Jialan 2020. Chapter 282. After the structure is capped, the pipelines, equipment, interior decoration, no, it should be the 4 element pools, the positive and negative energy room, the control room, the alchemy laboratory, the meditation room, the arcane library, the arcane garden, magic defense, magic alarm, magic trap. There is also Greet's P4 laboratory, air conditioning layer, pipeline layer, working layer, sewage treatment layer. These parts are also very quick to install. In fact, the Alchemy Workshop has already made modular designs for these components such as the Element Pool, Arcane Library, and Arcane Garden. There are 3 sets and 5 sets stored in the warehouse all year round. When you need to build a new Mage Tower, you can just take them out. As for the facilities in the P4 laboratory, they benefited from having done it once before. Now they just changed the horizontal ones into vertical ones and stacked them up layer by layer. There are not many places that need to be modified, and the people working on it are basically experienced. Several great magicians from the protection, conjuration, and transformation departments held 2 meetings together, and confirmed the needs with Gretel several times. Now they can do it easily and smoothly without any hindrance. One day and one night, the interior decoration was completed. In the evening, Archmage Carlyle accompanied 2 elders and arrived in person. Gretel only glanced at the 2 magicians before shrinking behind Archmage Carlyle. The magic robes worn by the 2 men were dark in color, but there were faintly colorful lights flowing in them, soundlessly beating with every breath. Just taking a few steps closer, there is an invisible force, forcing people to be breathless and have no choice but to retreat. The magic badges on those 2 chests are also different. What was shining quietly was not a copper star, a silver star, or a gold star, but a few cold rays of indescribable color. Maybe above level 15, magic badges have special styles. Gretel silently calculated that level 15 would be 5 gold stars, and if it went up, it would be level 16, 17. This is Master Mansfield of all things R1, a 9th level Arcanist, and a 17th level Great Magician. He was doing calculations in his mind when he heard Archmage Carlyle say, "I came here specifically to enlighten the Mage Tower. This one is Master Fraser from our Thunderhorn, a 9th level Arcanist, and an 18th level Great Magician. He has already begun to attack the legendary mage. This time, he came here to bring the Mage Tower to life. Connect to the magic network of Neva City and help you control the Mage Tower hub." Greet quickly bowed and thanked him. Archmage Carlyle accompanied the 2 elders into the magic tower and walked up first. Greet followed behind, couldn't help but touched Aurora, and asked in a low voice, "Magic network, after this magic tower is built, can I still access the internet?" "Do you think a mage tower can be built anywhere?" Master Mansfield of the Change Department said casually without looking back. "Of course it must be placed at a node with abundant magic power, so that it can have enough power to maintain the operation of the entire mage tower." "Got it, so it says that the mage tower should be placed on the ley line." Gretel nodded to express his understanding. Master Mansfield saw the look of realization on his face and continued. "These nodes are intertwined with each other along a certain vein to form a network. Your magic tower is connected to the magic network. In normal times, you can enjoy the support of surrounding nodes. In wartime, the defenses of all magic towers are raised together, and you can see the magic tower in Eagle's Fan. The outside of the lock forms a larger mysterious lock. Didn't your teacher tell you these things?" Cough. Carlyle looked embarrassed and coughed slightly. "Ordinary magicians will not be able to gain access to this knowledge in their lifetime. After all, ordinary magicians may not be able to have their own magic tower even if they work hard all their lives. Most of those who can really get the mage tower are from a famous family, and they have heard about it from their teachers. I don't know when they have heard about it. Greet is an anomaly. He is basically free range in Thunderhorn, with legendary mages watching over him, and no one dares to grab someone first. The advantage of this is that it gives Gretel enough freedom, but the disadvantage is the lack of common sense. Moreover, he is only at level 3, and Archmage Carlyle has never thought of supplementing him with relevant knowledge before. Fortunately, there are many people who know the inside story." Master Fraser from Thunder Corner came forward to smooth things over. "Master Mansfield came here this time to use the 9th level magic construction Awakening of Wisdom to enlighten the Mage Tower. In ordinary mage towers, the tower spirit has a low intelligence level and can only do a limited number of preset things through the control center. Only tower spirits who have been enlightened using construction wisdom enlightenment technique have human-like intelligence and can become good helpers to their masters. Casting 9th level magic once is extremely costly, why don't you thank the master properly? Gretel quickly thanked him. They came to the top of the mage tower together. Master Fraser stepped forward first, holding the crystal ball in the center of the control room with his hands left and right. He closed his eyes slightly, magic power flowed throughout his body, and the magic robe automatically moved without wind. 3 iron stones flew up silently, buzzing and spinning around Master Fraser's forehead. While chanting in a low voice, the crystal ball flickered on and off, getting brighter and brighter, gradually matching the rhythm of the twinkling iron stone. Master Fraser suddenly opened his eyes and drank a magic character. Fia. The crystal ball shines brightly. At the same moment, the mage tower buzzed, as if the whole thing came to life. Master Fraser took a deep breath and nodded to the master of the transformation department. It's your turn. Master Mansfield stepped forward slowly, shaking his sleeves. A cloud of silver powder flew out and began to outline the magic circle on its own within 3 meters around the crystal ball. Various gems, golden crowns, animal horns, and plant powders also flew out and landed on various locations. Obviously, this magic required his full strength. Gretel was also pushed to the front, surrounding the crystal ball and standing in an equilateral triangle with the 2 masters. Master Mansfield glanced at him and frowned slightly. Level 3? Is he okay? Don't you accept the center first, and then transfer it to him when the conditions are right? Let him try it first, Archmage Carlyle said. As he spoke, he took out a forehead crown, necklace, and bracelet, and gave them to Gretel, urging him to put them on. At the same time, he whispered. To increase mental power, you first enter a meditative state and synchronize with them. Later, follow the instructions of the 2 masters. Don't be nervous. If it really doesn't work, Master Fraser will take over. Master Mansfield looked at Greet carefully. He has always lived in seclusion and immersed himself in his own research. He only comes out to perform the following obligations when the Parliament and the School of Thought have needs. Now it seems that this little mage today is quite interesting. It is very rare for a 3rd-level magician, even a 4th-level arcanist, to have his own magic tower. The little guy can also ask the Thunderhorn to send the top magicians under the legend to escort him. An opportunity to try to master the core of the mage tower, even if it fails, ensure that he will not be harmed. With such a level of attention, Master Mansfield has inspired dozens of mage towers, but he has never seen one before. His attitude became a little softer, he nodded to Gretel and slowed down his speech. Don't be nervous. After synchronizing with the amplifying equipment, slowly explore your spiritual power and leave a spiritual imprint on the center. During the process of my enlightenment, as long as you maintain the imprint, you will be able to naturally control the tower spirit. It doesn't matter if you can't do it, just disconnect in time and Fraser will protect you. Gretel nodded to him gratefully. He followed the instructions to adjust his breathing, closed his eyes slightly, and entered a meditative state. As soon as his mental energy came out, he immediately said "Oh" and reached out to cover his eyes on the spot. Too bright? What he saw in his mental vision was no longer 2 masters, but 2 brilliant scorching suns. Although the control center of the mage tower is not as bright as the 2 masters, it is still dazzling enough, and it is closer to him, and the feeling of oppression is much heavier. With this surprise, he suddenly quit meditation. When he opened his eyes, the 2 masters were not impatient, but looked at him with a smile. Greet nodded to them sheepishly and entered meditation again. This time it went smoothly, and I penetrated the mental power into the control center, leaving my mark according to my previous experience of using magic items. Okay. That's it? A soft consciousness touched me. Greet answered softly in his heart, not sure if the other party heard him. However, the next moment, the originally calm control center suddenly became agitated. Greet's head buzzed. His original feeling was like flying a kite high, occasionally taking in and out the line, trying to adjust the height of the kite according to the wind direction, but now, the clear sky around the kite suddenly turned into thunderclouds. The airflow rolled, lightning flashed, and thunderbolts exploded next to the kite one after another. That pitiful connection will be severed at some point. The disturbance is too strong. Is this the 9th level spell, Construction of Wisdom Enlightenment? Greet desperately maintained the connection with the brand, and unknowingly, his brows were tightly knitted. Suddenly, a huge and gentle force enveloped him, gathering the threads of his mental power into it, isolating the surrounding shock. Don't worry. Don't fight it, just follow it and maintain its existence. Another awareness came in the meditative environment. Master Fraser took action? Greed had no time to think and acted instinctively as instructed. However, the situation is not much better. Even if there is no need to resist external interference, the spiritual imprint is still vibrating up and down in the core of the crystal ball, endlessly. Especially in the middle of constructing wisdom enlightenment technique, after the tower spirit's consciousness began to emerge, the struggle and resistance were particularly fierce. Greed felt as if he was standing on top of a fighter jet with his bare hands and being rolled around in the sky. No more. I can't hold it any longer. Greed soon faltered. That little mark is like a candle in the wind, it will be erased anytime and anywhere. And Master Manfield's spiritual power has already penetrated, permeating the surroundings softly, waiting to take its place anytime and anywhere. What to do? Want to give up? Greed gritted his teeth and simply broke the jar. He didn't think about maintaining the imprint or maintaining the mental connection. He simply mobilized his mental power and sketched the image he was most familiar with in the center of the crystal ball. 206 bones, more than 600 muscles, heart, blood vessels, arteries, veins, respiratory system, digestive system, nervous system, endocrine system. The mental energy is inputted as if the gate has been opened. At first it was just being transported, but soon, it was being sucked hard by a powerful force. Greed's face turned from red to white, then from white to blue. His whole body was swaying and he almost fell down on the spot. Archmage Carlyle rushed in quickly. He took out a bottle of mental replenishing potion, pulled out the stopper, and stuffed the mouth of the bottle directly into Gretel's mouth. Gretel drank it all unconsciously, and his face immediately looked better, but soon began to turn pale again. The second bottle of potion. The third bottle of potion. I don't know how many bottles of medicine I drank one after another. However, the absorption rate of the medicine is getting slower and slower, and the supplement provided to the mental power is getting less and less. Archmage Carlyle frowned and winked at Master Fraser repeatedly, wanting to ask him if he had any higher level supplements. However, Master Fraser has concentrated his energy and is ready to take over the Tower Spirit Center at any time and safely exclude Gretel's mental power. At this moment, a glistening green light suddenly flew up from Gretel's chest. As the green light swept across, Gretel's complexion immediately improved, and the spiritual power that was about to be depleted also became abundant, and the mental power picture he had worked so hard to outline was finally completed. From the inside out, from bones to skin, a complete human body is formed. The crystal ball shook slightly, and the light disappeared. Then, a little fluorescent light flew out of the crystal ball and disappeared directly into Gretel's eyebrows. Incredible! He actually did it? Master Mansfield looked incredulous. Master Fraser looked happy and was about to answer when his expression suddenly changed. He waved gently, and a pair of mage's hands appeared in time, mating behind Gretel. These hands could not have appeared more timely. The next moment, Gretel was covered in sweat and fell backward. Gretel had no idea how long he had been sitting down. All he knew was that when he woke up, the sweat all over his body had almost dried up. Archmage Carlyle and Aurora were looking at him anxiously, one on each side. The two masters smiled and showed no signs of impatience. When they saw him waking up, they even praised him. Not easy. Well done. Come on, give it a try. Can you control this tower spirit? Greet tried what they said. Sure enough, opening and closing doors, displaying various scenes in the tower, and manipulating invisible servants to work are all satisfactory. Master Fraser stood up with a smile. Very good, as long as you can control it. Let's go back first. You can slowly explore the next function. As long as you can think of it, it can do it for you. By the way, remember to give it a name. Greet sent them out respectfully. As soon as the two masters and Archmage Carlyle disappeared, he jumped up happily. Oro, I have a mage tower. We have our own mage tower. Come on, let's go up together, and you can choose a room to live in dash. They looked at it layer by layer. Skip the lobby on the first floor and the P4 laboratory on floors 2 to 4. Starting from the 5th floor, there are the Alchemy Laboratory, Library, Arcane Garden, Magician's Residence, and other rooms. Floor by floor, room by room, looking at each other, the excitement of the two people gradually cooled down. The Mage Tower was completely empty. There is no wallpaper on the walls, no carpets on the floor, no tables, chairs, bookcases, or sofas. If you want to pour a glass of water, you can only get a cup from the space bag. Bed. Of course it's impossible, the space bag can't fit the bed board. Hey, boss, it's just the two of us, and Bernard. How can the three of us live in such a big mage tower? The barbarian is not a magician yet, and he will not enter at all on many floors. Basically, it is equivalent to two people living. Question. What is it like for two people to live in a mage tower with 3 floors underground and 9 floors above ground, a total of 12 floors? Zhiu, please share the story you just made up. Collect the names and characteristics of the tower spirit. A big chapter of 4,000 words. Also dropped a 10,000 reward plus more updates. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Thank you to the readers for the rewards. In the next 5 days, there will be 50,000 rewards plus more to be returned. Thanks to Dark Knight Soul Lamp for the 1,500 starting coins. Big brother, please use the browser to reward Apple mobile phones in the future, otherwise you will receive it 3 months later, and the money received will be discounted in half. Thanks to @bookfriend 202005231828504040 for the reward of 101 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 283. Gretel looked at Aurora, and Aurora looked at Gretel. The two young magicians looked at each other. Aurora is okay. First, he has adapted to the environment of the Mage Tower very well since he started learning magic. Second, he is not the boss and does not need to be responsible for decision-making. If the boss wants a Mage Tower, then he should get a Mage Tower. As for how to make the Mage Tower work after getting it, there are many ways for magicians to do it. Greet did the math and found that his whole body was in bad shape. 2 people live on the 12th floor. Even excluding the uninhabited air conditioning floor, pipeline floor, and sewage treatment floor in the P4 laboratory, there are still 9 floors. The average area used by each person is 4.5 floors. Even excluding energy facilities and experimental facilities, the Mage Tower is just a room for people to live in. It also has a master room, 2 guest rooms, and 4 rooms for middle and low-level magicians. There is also an entire floor of rooms for mage apprentices. Even if there is 1 room for each person, 12 apprentices can be crammed into it. How can I live here? Greet's mood at this time was like hearing gossip from Hu Jianlei's classmates in western Zhejiang, saying that the wealthy people there loved to build houses, and the villagers built their own houses, casually building 4 or 5 floors. There is only a family of 3 living there. During the day, people come and go nearby, but at night, the effect is, well, like a haunted house. The problem is, the wealthy man being ridiculed in gossip now has obviously become himself. By the way, how do you clean such a big mage tower? He doesn't want to imitate Tang Santang in Journey to the West and sweep the top 3 floors from the bottom to the top every day. In other words, even for Tang Monk, Sun Wukong swept the top 3 floors for him. Aurora was stunned when she heard this. It wasn't that he didn't know the answer, but he never expected that his boss would ask this question. Generally speaking, for those who are qualified to become the master of a mage tower, things like cleaning should not be a problem. Ahem, boss, would you like to communicate with the tower spirit first? The tower spirit should be able to control the invisible servants to clean, or should we buy 2 magic dolls? Another way is to recruit disciples. Generally speaking, how many disciples can be recruited in a mage tower? Apprentice, how can I clean it up? Yes, if you are rich, you will use the magic puppet of the tower, but if you are poor, you will squeeze the manpower. This is the common practice of the mage tower. What, you said there is no manpower to exploit? A magician who can independently preside over a magician tower must be at least a level 5 magician and has the qualifications to recruit disciples and guide apprentices. As for the high-level mage tower owned by Greet, the host is usually a magician of level 7 or above, or even level 9. Generally speaking, when a mage reaches level 9, he already needs strength and connections. There are 2 or 3 5th level disciples, 4 or 5 low-level mages, and a dozen apprentices. The mage tower can maintain daily operations without the owner taking action. However, who told Gretel to pull a cart and jump too far? I can't afford a golem, I'm looking for an apprentice. I'm only level 3, Gretel muttered in a low voice. Forget it, I'd better communicate with the tower spirit first. Gretel pressed the crystal ball again. He reached out his mental power and gently moved the control center. Sure enough, a soft and pleasant voice sounded in his consciousness. Hello, Master. The mage tattling is at your service. First of all, please give me a name. Along with the sound, a glistening human figure lit up in the meditation field of vision. Greet looked carefully and found that this human figure was not very similar to the one he had constructed in his consciousness before, at least it was exactly the same. Under the translucent skin, bones support, muscles cling, the heart beats, and blood flows. Except for the stiff facial features and dull expression, he is completely just a 3D dummy used for clinical teaching. Aurora also came over. He couldn't connect to his central consciousness like Gretel, so he could only lie down on the crystal ball, stare at the slightly larger little person inside, and yell. Hey, boss, is this the just-made pagoda spirit? It's so detailed. It's such a small figure, with all 4 limbs and 5 features, all complete. By the way, is he a boy or a girl? Ah, it seems to be a boy. Alas, why didn't Master set him to be a woman? Boss, can you change it now? Well. Greet's eyes averted. To be honest, the problem of male and female in the tower age may not be the fault of the Master, but his own fault. When he set up the human body structure, he subconsciously set it to be male. There was nothing he could do. He was not familiar with the anatomy of gynecology. Whenever he needed surgery clinically, he would directly call for gynecology consultation. But seeing Aurora dancing like this, if you think about it carefully, you should at least get a female appearance. It will also be convenient when reviewing anatomy knowledge in the future. Talling, he called softly in his heart, can your image still be adjusted? Yes, master. Can you memorize another set and switch at any time according to my requirements? Yes, master. By the way, is your character male or female? The constructing intelligence technique comes with 18 sets of initial character templates for you to choose from. Master, do you want me to show you the list, or show you one by one? Show list. With a brushing sound, a light curtain opened in front of the crystal ball. Aurora moved closer to take a look faster than Gretel. 6 female templates, 6 male templates, 2 neutral templates, 3 animal templates, 1 plant template. What kind of person would choose a plant template? Really, wouldn't it be nice to give me one more, young lady? He casually poked at the female template. From short to tall, 6 female figures walked back and forth on the light curtain like a revolving lantern. Cute girl, sweet girl, lively maid, brave female warrior, gentle young woman, serious housekeeper. Is there anyone more beautiful? Catwoman, fox girl, Miss Mermaid, angel, Aurora asked repeatedly. The light screen flashed for a moment, and with a swipe sound, a form was pulled out on the right side. The Catwoman template has 2,000 contribution points, the Fox Girl has 2,000 contribution points, the Mermaid has 3,000 points, the low-level Angel has 5,000 points. There are dozens of options. Greet's eyes were quick and he saw a small page number at the bottom of the form. 1/10. The charging items are from top to bottom, and the numbers are from small to large. Aurora turned to the last page out of curiosity. The option at the bottom of the list was a long string of zeros, and she couldn't even count how many there were at a glance. Well. Aurora shrank back silently. He knew how short of money Greed was. Let alone 2,000 contribution points, even if it was 100 points, he would definitely not spend it on the charging template. Just as he was about to poke the maid template to listen to the sound, Greed stretched out his hand and summoned 2 genderless templates. One is in the shape of a human, or rather, a golem, with a round head, arms, and legs. The other one had no shape at all, just a flat panel with flashing writing on it. Greed poked at the panel based on intuition, and immediately, a flat electronic sound with no fluctuations sounded from the pillar below the crystal ball. Owner. Tarling says hello to you. The same writing was also typed on the panel. On the right side of the light curtain, a series of instructions were given. Intelligent core. No sense of perceptual thinking, relying entirely on rational algorithms, no emotional distress, no cognitive limitations, and making the most correct decision in the shortest time. Learnable and evolving. It's you, Greed stretched out his hand and poked. Stretch out your 5 fingers to cover the crystal ball. The tower spirit is named, Moss. There is no male or female, neither male nor female, the image switches back and forth, and various musculoskeletal anatomical structures are often called out. It is quite embarrassing for both men and women. Since it is artificial intelligence, it is better to choose a neutral name. Yes, Moss says hello to you, Tarling replied hummingly. Aurora asked curiously. Moss? What do you mean? You said this is moss. Why do you call it moss? Yes, you are a priest of the Church of Nature and you have a special liking for plants, but many flowers and trees are also beautiful. Ah, it really doesn't work, oak trees are also your specialty plants. What are you trying to do? Are you thinking that moss grows easily? Gretel didn't answer. He just held down the crystal ball, stroked it gently, and said silently in his mind. Don't worry, this mage tower can't float in the air, and I won't drive you into anything. Moss, you don't have to defect this time. The crystal ball rippled rapidly, and then again. The colorful lights rotated back and forth, looking a bit like a disco turning on the ball, and also like Moss was completely confused. What is defection? Why defect? Gretel hurriedly said before Tarling asked. Moss, Can you be responsible for the cleaning work in the tower? Yes. Moss can control invisible servants to clean the mage tower. Please ask the master to provide cleaning tools, such as brooms, rags, and buckets, and set the cleaning area and cleaning frequency. Where's the cooking food? Yes. There is a kitchen on the first floor of the mage tower. The fire source is connected to the fire element pool. Moss can control the invisible servants to cook. Please provide the master with cooking utensils, ingredients, seasonings, designated menus, and designated methods. Can I decorate the room? Please ask the owner to provide furniture and furnishings. Gretel looked around. The newly built mage tower, including the walls, floor, and ceiling, were all just raised from the ground. Broom, rag, pots and pans, oil, salt, sauce, and vinegar, nothing. So I still need to find someone to do the purchasing. Moss cannot leave the mage tower. The invisible servant can patrol within 1 kilometer outside the tower, but has no communication ability. It is recommended that the owner appoints a special person to purchase it. Entering the tower empty-handed and completely unprepared, Greet could only lock the door and leave. He and Aurora, each with a magic horse, climbed over the ridge and ran to the garden house on the other side. Let's spend the night in the villa today. At the very least, the villa needs a bed, a quilt, and a cook to cook food. The two of them won't have to lie on the floor and rely on the water generating technique to get water to drink. Boss, I really think you should get some people from somewhere. Your public health center, well, isn't the health center about to open soon? We don't need manpower? Otherwise, boss, you can get a group of mages to come to the tower. How can you say that? Training first. Thank you readers for your monthly votes, recommendation votes, and book reviews. Thank you everyone for providing the tower spirit settings. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 284. Aurora Wharton said that asking Gretel to go to the public health institution to gather some people was not just a casual talk. In fact, before he even went to pick it up, someone was already begging him to pick it up. The construction of the mage tower is completed. The interior is completed. The tower spirit enlightenment is completed. All this took up Greet for 2 days. Early in the morning on the third day, Greet had just woken up in a daze when a carriage with the emblem of the Magic Council blocked the door of the villa, waiting eagerly to pick him up. Gretel smiled as soon as she got up. Aurora was actually in the car too, popping up with a black face, yawning and waving to him. How impatient I am, for fear of delaying a little time. In fact, it wasn't that they didn't want to pick him up, but that Gretel had been busy with the mage tower in the past 2 days. The guys around me were either level 14 or 5, or level 17 or 18. The guys who came to pick me up couldn't get along. The carriage rolled along the foot of the mountain and took Gretel to the office of the Magic Council. The 6-story white tower stands tall, majestic, and upright, just as it was when he first saw it, but Gretel has no intention of admiring it anymore. He also has a mage tower himself. 3 floors underground and 9 floors above ground. On the right side of the entrance hall on the first floor of the white tower, the large black iron door is tightly closed, which is the area where the emergency management department is stationed. The visitor led Greet straight through the door and walked in, making many twists and turns until he reached the deepest part and entered an empty conference room. The room is spacious and can accommodate at least 20 or 30 people for a meeting. There is a large rectangular table in the middle. The sand table on the table wavers, imaginary and real. The houses, streets, rivers, and trees are concrete and micro, and they are exactly the miniature reproduction of the city of Nevis. Gretel couldn't help but lie down and look. Well, Bridge Magic Academy is here, the White Tower is not far away, the villa area, the small train station, even his newly built magic tower is marked. Sharp. How often is the sandbox updated? This is the magic sandbox of Neva City. A voice suddenly sounded from the side. 12 invisible servants carry the mystic eyes around the city every day. The scenes seen by the mystical eyes are collected and updated once a day. Greed turned back suddenly. Standing next to the sand table was a strange, middle-aged magician. He was tall and had a resolute face. His weather-beaten face had piercing black eyes that seemed to be able to see into people's hearts at a glance. He nodded to Gretel and stretched out his right hand. Master Greet Nordmark. Nice to meet you. I am the Minister of Emergency Management, Johnny Collin. Nice to meet you. In the future work of the Department of Public Health, the Department of Emergency Management will allocate a law enforcement team to work with you. Joint Law Enforcement. Greet reached out and shook hands with him. While shaking hands, I took a quick glance and saw 3 silver stars and 3 white rings on the magician's badge on the man's chest, a 3rd-level arcanist and an 8th-level magician. The research level is obviously behind the magic level. Judging from his position, he is probably very good at fighting. It's a good thing to be able to fight. Public health agencies also need to rely on their strength to enforce the law, but with his connections, he doesn't know where to look. Fortunately, the review committee sent it. Gretel showed a sincere smile and shook his hand hard. The middle-aged magician's palms are as hard as iron. He looks more like a warrior than a magician. After the 2 sides exchanged greetings, Minister Collin pointed to the sand table and said, "It has the topography and water flow direction of Neva City. According to the location of the houses, it is very convenient to determine the location of the water supply facilities. In the past 2 days, surveyors from the Emergency Management Department have designed the water pipes. Take a look. Is there anything that needs to be changed?" He pressed on the sand table, made a few gestures, and whispered a short spell. Soon, blue lines lit up one after another on the sand table, some thick and some thin, running down from the nearby mountains. They were obviously the water supply pipelines Greet had mentioned. Greet leaned forward to take a closer look. In middle and high-end residential areas and in low and middle-end residential areas, there are many water supply pipelines crisscrossing into each house and building. However, in low-end residential areas, special pools are opened on the streets. There are small pieces of blue squares, and there are actually splashes of water. It seems to be an open design, forming a pool for people to come and fetch water on their own. This won't work. Gretel immediately shook his head. It's too easy to contaminate. This work is not my responsibility. Master Collin waved his hand. The construction of water supply facilities is someone else's business. I will only show you the sand table. Please note the location. Someone will come over later and we will have a meeting in another room. Gretel stopped talking and tried to read and remember. Fortunately, after becoming a magician, my mental strength and memory have improved. It is not difficult to remember such a large map. Ah, here we come. As time passed by, Master Collin suddenly whispered. Soon, a series of bells rang by the door of the conference room. Master Collin immediately took Gretel out, went straight to the 5th floor, and entered a luxuriously furnished conference room. The long table in this conference room is oval-shaped, covered with dark black velvet, almost hanging to the ground. Gretel was guided by Master Collin and took a seat on the side of the long oval table, near the end. After waiting for a while, the attendees began to arrive one after another. Gretel looked around and couldn't help but want to laugh. The people who came to the meeting today are basically low-profile versions of the hearings from the previous 2 days. A bishop came from the temple of the god of war, and a priest came from the temple of the goddess of spring. Judging from the decorations on their robes, they should both be of the 11th or 2nd level. Behind them were followers, sitting on chairs near the wall behind the long table, with notebooks spread out on their knees and looking up. It looked like the notebook was densely packed, with a lot written and crossed out. I might have been in meetings for the past 2 days, and God knows how many fights I had. Elderwood actually arrived in person. As for the Magic Council, Master Edgar, why did you come here in person? Hey, Lynn, when did you come back? Greet was really pleasantly surprised. Meeting this magician who led the way on the path of magic and gave him potassium permanganate in key battles to increase his fighting power, he was much more affectionate than meeting Archmage Edgar. Lin An gave him an ugly smile. I just came back 2 days ago. Little Gretel, I heard that you are going to do something big again. How about adding me? Of course it's good if you're interested. Greet nodded happily. Master Lin An sat against the wall behind his mentor. Seeing Gretel stretching his neck from time to time and trying to look at him, he couldn't help but laugh. Don't look, Mr. Trochka isn't here. Gretel shrank his head. He's not looking at the black cat, he's looking for the golden skeleton. Then one after another, 4 or 5 more nobles arrived, including the female knight Selena who had been here that day. Gretel smiled happily at her, and as soon as they exchanged greetings, the review committee member from the Department of Change entered the conference room and announced the start of the meeting. In the previous 2 days of meetings, we have initially reached an agreement to establish a Department of Public Health, with Greet Nordmark as the first director. The council is responsible for monitoring and disinfecting water quality throughout the city. The Federation of Nobles and the General Chamber of Commerce of Neva City, in cooperation with the Parliament, are responsible for pipeline construction and daily water charges. The Spring Temple, in cooperation with the Council, is responsible for the construction of reservoirs, drinking water pipelines, and drinking water supply and maintenance. The Temple of the God of War will cooperate with the Council to crack down on random dumping of garbage and illegal sewage discharge. The Order of the God of Nature, in cooperation with the Council, is responsible for the collection, treatment, and purification of sewage. The 3 major temples and the Parliament will work together to build and maintain infectious disease hospitals. The member of the committee spoke neither too fast nor too slowly. While repeating the resolutions of the previous meeting, he looked at the heads of various temples one after another, and at the same time looked at Gretel intentionally or unintentionally, as if he was telling him specifically. After saying it once, seeing the leaders nodding one after another, he turned to Gretel. Master Nordmark, as the first director of the Department of Public Health, do you have anything to add? Yes, Greet digested the commissioner's speech for a moment and smiled slightly. It seemed that the meetings and arguments in the past few days were not in vain. Before he knew it, the Parliament and the major forces had reached a relative balance. The most obvious point is that the Spring Water Temple has obtained the supply and maintenance of drinking water, and it is unknown how much blood they secretly shed. He gathered his thoughts, bowed slightly, and nodded to the big guys sitting at the top. After all the adults nodded in approval, he slowed down and spoke one by one. In terms of urban governance, all of you elders are much better than me. Just in terms of professionalism, I would like to share some of my thoughts. First of all, I have seen the planning of slums. The drinking water places are relatively dense and evenly arranged, which is good. But one thing to note is that the pool should be a closed pool with a pressure pump installed on it. In addition, a separate opening should be left in the pool to facilitate the regular placement of disinfectants. I will submit the specific drawings later. In medium and high-end residential areas and in low and medium-end residential areas, it is best for every building and house to have pipes connected to the home. This won't work. Across the long table, to the right of the female knight Selena, a young noble jumped up. Gretel recognized that he looked somewhat similar to the nobleman who spoke on behalf of the Spring Temple during the hearing the day before yesterday. Our family is already working on piping water supply. 2 blocks and 12 buildings are all responsible for our family. The council wants to remove the pipes for no reason, no. He glanced at Selena as he spoke. The female knight ignored him, but turned her head more and more, looking at Gretel a few more times. That's it? Greed put his fist on his chin and thought for a moment. It's not impossible. Since your home is doing it, the council won't demolish it for nothing. But the council is doing the water supply project not to make money, but for the safety of the people in the city. You can continue to provide water, but your pipes and water quality needs to be tested and approved by the parliament. What a joke. Another 3,000 words. Another extra update dropped. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, please ask for all kinds of. Thanks to @DRZMM for the 500 starting coins. Thanks to @Sherry Gray for the 100 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 285. These days, there are people who do piped water supply. These days, there are people who have piped water supply companies in their homes. Although Greed was a little surprised, he didn't lose his composure. After all, in this world where the technology tree is skewed, nothing is impossible, only what you can't imagine. Can you believe that there can be extremely high-level artificial intelligence in a place where there are no semiconductors? However, in Greed's opinion, it is intolerable to refuse to accept the supervision of the public health department when providing piped water supply. This gentleman. He sat forward a little, straightening his back. Diagonally opposite, the young noble raised his chin proudly. Viscount Calendar. Okay, His Excellency Viscount Calendar, Gretel sighed. Although you are a Viscount, the Viscount is indeed very big. When I was in Heartland City, the surrounding area was the territory of Viscount Heartland for 100 miles, but I don't know. You don't have a mage badge on your chest. Why are you so proud of facing a magician in the city of magicians? Even if I am only a fourth-ring arcanist, the entire Magic Council is standing behind me. He tried hard to keep his attitude neither humble nor arrogant. As the first director of the Department of Public Health, it is necessary for me to point out to you, ensuring the quality of water supply for residents is a need for public health. The Parliament does not interfere with your water supply business. However, in view of the possible pollution of water sources, contamination or rust of water pipes, corruption and deterioration of water bodies during water supply work, the Department of Public Health is responsible for testing water quality. No, you can't do that. Viscount Calendar leaned back, stretched out his arms, and crossed them on the table. According to the city charter jointly established by the Magic Council, nobles, and free people when the city of Nevis was founded, you have no right to enter my land without my permission. What? Does this city still have a city charter? I have been immersed in medicine, or immersed in magic for too long, and I didn't actually look through these things. Gretel was secretly annoyed, and added another homework for himself, and said with a smile. Your Excellency, Viscount Calendar, I don't need to enter your water source. As long as I test it at the end, that is, at the outlet of your water pipe, I can still determine whether your water quality meets the requirements. Sorry. The young noble raised his chin for the second time. A smile appeared on his thin face, half proud and half cunning. Those 2 blocks and 12 buildings are also my family's property. You really can't enter without permission. Greed suddenly looked at him differently. When he visited the city, he saw with his own eyes that in the middle to high income areas and the middle to low income areas, which are the areas where piped water supply is most likely to be provided, most of them are 3-, 4-, or 5-story buildings, with hundreds of rooms in one building. Owns 2 blocks and 12 buildings. Local tycoon. Sorry. At this time, there was a movement around him. Gretel lowered his eyes slightly, and when he saw Master Colin, the Minister of Emergency Management, sitting on his left, he quietly handed over a note. Viscount Calendar is a nobleman who took root in Nevis City before the Magic Council was established in Nevis City. The family is deeply rooted currently. There is a 15th level great magician in the family, as well as many mid-level and high-level magicians. Ah, oh, okay, Gretel lowered his eyes, thought quickly, and raised a smile. Your house has been rented out. As long as the tenant invites me in, I can legally test it. I am the homeowner. If I don't agree, you can't come in. If you go in secretly, what you get will be useless in court. A quarrel soon broke out between the two sides. In the middle of the long table, the review member of the Department of Change listened for a while and coughed. So be it, Viscount Calendar, your family can continue the work of water supply, and the Parliament will not disturb it. However, if an infectious disease breaks out among your guests and it turns out to be a problem with the water supply, you will be fully responsible. This includes residents' medical expenses and isolation expenses, environmental disinfection expenses, compensation for residents' losses, and the cost of water supply management modifications. Do you agree with this result? Viscount Calendar's face turned gloomy, and he nodded slightly unhappily. Gretel frowned slightly and could only express his approval of the review committee's decision. He shifted his gaze, no longer looking at the Viscount, and continued. The next focus is to establish a water quality monitoring system and establish an infectious disease hospital. The reason why we talk about these two things together is because doing both of them requires relevant professional manpower. My current idea is that for the infectious disease hospital, I will be responsible for drawing the drawings, the council will be responsible for the construction work, and various temples, if the medical branch is willing to participate, they are also very welcome, provide healers. Of course, healers do not need to be stationed permanently. It is enough to retain a minimum number of manpower at ordinary times and assemble again in case of a major outbreak. Several clergymen frowned at the same time. The bishop of the God of War temple whispered. Now is the training season, and our treatment tasks are also very important. We need to be stationed. He recalled the word. The infectious disease hospital, I'm afraid we can only send 1 or 2 low-level priests here. The priest of the spring water temple nodded silently. Elderwood also frowned slightly. At the turn of winter and spring, there are particularly many patients. The Order of the God of Nature tried its best, but at most it could only spare 3 or 4 people. I knew it wouldn't be that easy to poach people from the temple. Gretel murmured silently. Then, he raised his head calmly and looked at each of the priests one by one. I am responsible for teaching about the detection of infectious germs, how healers can protect themselves, and how to interrupt the chain of transmission. By the way, my mage tower currently only has 12 apprentice rooms, and the laboratory is not big. We all have 12 places. Archmage Edgar jumped up immediately. Don't worry, these apprentices are at your disposal. They can work for as long as you want them to. Little Greet, you promised before that you would train apprentices for Black Crow Swamp. You can't go back on it. There was a slight tremor in the conference room. Elderwood coughed. Hey, this is too much. Why does the necromancy school need so many places? You don't have healing skills. In this way, the God of Nature religion will send 4 healers to receive training and be stationed in the infectious disease hospital. Is it okay? Greet smiled slightly. The bishop of the God of War temple frowned and stared at the necromancer, then looked deeply at Elderwood and coughed lightly. When marching and fighting, diseases often harm the health of soldiers. The Temple of the God of War hopes to obtain 8 training places so that our priests can learn how to prevent infections and how to take care of our soldiers. Spring Goddess Temple. The 3 bosses stared at him together. There are only 12 places in total. The 3 forces combined have already registered 24 people. Do you want to get involved again? Do you have a good relationship with Greed? Not feeling well today. Chills, sore throat, suspected cold. P.S. I had the vaccine a few months ago, both shots. That's all I have in the morning, and I'll work hard to finish the extra updates in the afternoon. Please give me monthly votes, recommend votes, book reviews, and all kinds of things. Thanks to @Momota for the 5,000 starting coins. Thanks to @Uxiafang for the 100 starting coins reward. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 286. Facts have proved that when no one is grabbing something, it may not look very valuable. Buyers are picky about whether they want to buy it or not. However, once two people start grabbing it, the value of such things immediately rises. If 3 or 4 people rob it at the same time, even if it is really rubbish, it can be instantly rimmed with gold and sparkle with aura of auspiciousness. What's more, what Greet took out was really a good thing. Greet's 2 dysentery-related papers have been studied over and over again in Black Crow Swamp. I don't know how many times I have studied them. Even if it wasn't a plague branch, I couldn't help but buy a few microscopes when they came on the market, and tinkered with them day and night. However, it is a pity that more than half a year has passed. Is the result of the tinkering? Nothing has grown. What exactly is growing here? Why are there yellow, green, and white in a glass bottle? This is different from what the paper says. The glass tube is hairy. The color won't go on. You can't see anything under the microscope. It would definitely be wrong to say that Gretel was writing blindly in the paper. During the laboratory leak incident, Gretel took 10 deistic priests and 10 necromancers to teach them step by step, including birth, sampling, staining, and microscopic examination. After being taught by him for a few days, the necromancers who worked under him have become skilled workers at least in detecting cholera bacilli. Then, he returned to his own laboratory, started to isolate and culture other bacteria, and continued to turn over and over again. Therefore, Black Crow Swamp closely monitors Gretel's every move and closely monitors everyone. As soon as the training quota is released here, Black Crow Swamp over there will rush to grab it. The speed of the action is comparable to that of ticket sellers in top-tier hospitals competing for expert accounts, or like fans selling their idols' concert tickets instantly. Face. What is a face? Is it important to have knowledge about your face? It is natural for a disciple to learn from a master and learn skills from a master. So Archmage Edgar said as soon as he opened his mouth that they would send 12 people over directly. Next, there are 4 temples of the god of nature and 8 temples of the god of war. The priests of the spring temple hesitated for a moment. The training quota was already 200% full, and they couldn't get anything. The necromancer sat on the door side of the long table, and the 3 temple bosses sat on the window side, confronting each other, with daggers flying around. The bishop of the temple of the god of war was the most impatient. He glared twice before the other party would give in, and immediately started slapping the table. Bones, you are going too far. There are only 12 places in total, do you still want to swallow them up? I will give you 1/3 at most. 1/4, the priest of the spring temple interrupted. Although he didn't quite understand what others were robbing, he didn't go to the meeting a few days ago, so naturally he didn't know there were papers to read, but the things being robbed by so many people must be good things. This time, the spring water temple also contributed to the establishment of a public health institution, so why not get a share of it? 1/4 is too much, the review committee member presiding over the meeting smiled and turned to the necromancer. Old Edgar, you can't just take away all the parliament's shares just because you are here today. I don't need a quota if I change the department. In the conjuration department, are there no quotas for the medical branch? The little guy is still a plastic model. You snatched up all their quotas. Do you believe that His Excellency, the Lord of Thunder, found out and struck a thunderbolt on the spot? Cough. Aurora dared to cough. Although the boss has not reserved a place for his own school, the Lord of Thunder knows that if you talk like this thunder might hit your head. Actually, the key is that there are not enough places. Elderwood continued calmly. Hey, little Gretel, can't you really train a few more people? You have to monitor the city's drinking water and open a hospital. 12 people are not enough, right? When the plague broke out last time, he remembered clearly that Gretel arrested 20 people to work in one breath. But Gretel was embarrassed. My mage tower. Isn't there only 12 rooms? Elderwood waved his hand casually. My little guy, just let the two of them squeeze into one room. If that's not enough, bring a blanket and sleep on the floor in the hall. The servants of the god of nature are not so delicate. They live in the wilderness and barn grass. DUI, where can't I spend the night? His words opened up the conversation. Bishop Ares immediately followed up. There's no problem with the Ares priest. Mage Nordmark, can you double the quota? I can do it too, Archmage Edgar patted his chest. When I first started, I wasn't even a mage apprentice, and I slept on the floor in the hall. I can do it, but those apprentices can't. Gretel looked at the big guys with surprised eyes. 2 persons per apprentice room. Sleeping on the floor wrapped in a blanket? Gentlemen, are you serious? Although he had lived in an 8-person room when he was in school in his previous life, on the ground floor, facing north, it was extremely hot in summer and the windows needed to be sealed with sealing tape in winter, but after becoming a mage's apprentice, Greet's personal living area has never been as large as over 15 square meters. He has always felt that the conditions of a spellcaster should naturally exceed those of ordinary people. The apprentice room only has a single bed, a table, a chair, and a cabinet, and the bathroom is shared on the same floor. How can spellcasters tolerate 2 people living in such a room? He looked left and right. The magicians and clergy all nodded to him. Greet thought for a while. Come for training and listen to my guidance. No problem. If you don't obey me, you'll be beaten to death. If you can't be beaten to death, Black Crow Swamp will beat you again. After successful training, you will have to work in the Department of Public Health for at least 1 year. Are you going to train new people within a year? Yes. That's no problem. When an infectious disease breaks out, all major temples must send high-level priests to support. The number of people must not be less than 5, and the support time must not be less than 30 days per year. This. 2 of the 3 priests were silent. At the critical moment, the great magician of the change department coughed lightly. No problem. According to the agreement between the council and the temple, when the plague breaks out, the temple is obliged to provide support. If this happens, the council will definitely help you coordinate. I'm fine. Gretel breathed a sigh of relief. 24 people is 24 people, no more. The laboratory will be too big to fit in any more. Give me a few days, and when the mage tower is packed, we will start training. What are you still packing? Let them come over tomorrow, Archmage Edgar rushed to say. Gretel was stunned for a moment. But, the laboratory hasn't been moved here yet. My bacteria. My petri dish. My shadowless lamp. Still in the same place. We'll send someone to help you move it. Then you have to give me time to purchase. I don't have anything there, the mage tower was just built yesterday. You make the list. You don't have to worry about anything else. Does this mean that everything from sheets and quilt covers to pots and pans, as well as all experimental equipment and experimental animals, must be provided for me at once? Still have chills. Sorry everyone, I have a day off today and only updated 4,000 words. I will continue to update more tomorrow. I still owe 4 additional updates, it is currently 4.6. I remember. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, please ask for all kinds of It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 287. This is how Gretel got his first batch of subordinates. Number of people, 24 people. Identity, mage apprentice, priest apprentice. Source: Black Crow Swamp 8. 2 people from the Conjuration School and the Medical Branch. 2 people from the School of Change. 4 members of the Order of the God of Nature. 6 people from the Temple of the God of War. 2 people from the Temple of the Goddess of Spring. Brackets need to be trained to be used. Gretel left Aurora the preparations for the training. For example, the living facilities in the Mage Tower, such as meat, eggs, rice, noodles, oil, salt, sauce and vinegar, such as experimental supplies and experimental animals, let him make an order and let Black Crow Swamp or any other company find a way to purchase it. Greet himself took on an urgent task for the Public Health Department. Give change. In front of Gretel, there was a newly arrived middle-aged man with gray hair and a sad face. He has a counter in his left hand and an account book in his right hand. The cuffs of his woolen coat have been worn white. He is obviously a newly assigned accountant with a poor financial situation. Sitting down in the small conference room, he sighed and turned the account book over to show Gretel. We don't need to worry about the construction costs of reservoirs and water pipes, as well as the construction costs of infectious diseases hospitals. The Parliament has reached an agreement with the major temples. The donations from various nobles and businessmen will be used to offset the construction costs, and the temples will take care of the remaining part. Bear. But we have to figure out the next operating expenses ourselves. He flipped through the account book page by page. The price of bleaching powder, currently sold to us by the Plastic Energy School, is 1 gold coin per kilogram. According to what you said, putting bleaching powder in the drinking water bodies of the city would require every day. As he spoke, Gretel was doing mental calculations. Calculate that the chlorine added amount is 3 mg/liter of water and the effective chlorine of bleaching powder is 25%. For every cubic meter of drinking water, 12 grams of bleaching powder needs to be added. There are 500,000 people in the city, and 1,000 tons of drinking water a day means 12 kilograms of bleaching powder. It needs to be delivered accurately and without any waste. 12 gold coins, he reported the answer. The wrinkles on the middle-aged accountant's face are getting deeper. There are 365 days in a year, which is 4,380 gold coins. In addition, the wages of priest apprentices and mage apprentices. Greet originally planned not to give any points. Just kidding, you came to him for training and you still want to get paid? Doesn't your school provide subsidies? But thinking about it again, the apprentices were already extremely poor. If he doesn't give it, and if his own school of thought doesn't give it, like the God of Nature cult, it really will give you nothing but food. Won't you starve to death in this year? Just like interns and trainees in hospitals, it is impossible to get a formal doctor's salary, and they still have to pay a few subsidies. You press first. Gretel thought for a moment. Testing water quality must be done by full-time personnel, and you cannot rely on free labor from various companies every day. Then the question comes. In this world, how much does it cost to hire an ordinary person with a normal education, or a mage apprentice who is 40 years old and cannot advance? Let's make a budget based on 5 gold coins per month first, he whispered. The middle-aged accountant lowered his head and made another note. 5 gold coins a month, 12 months a year, 24 people. 1,440 gold coins, the total is 5,820. And the cost of testing reagents, and the daily operating expenses of the infectious disease hospital. Although the emergency management department next door shares law enforcement capabilities, we have to at least give them a little subsidy every time they go out. Otherwise, it would be normal for people to just make excuses and come an hour late. Gretel. Feeling, as the director of the Department of Public Health, my first year's salary, or in other words, the half of the Mage Tower, is not free. In addition to creating a department, I also need to establish an effective mechanism to provide operating funds for the Department of Public Health. No wonder the Parliament promised such high remuneration. Greet looked up and sighed. I am just a clinician, and I was forced to take the position of Director of the Department of Public Health. It doesn't matter, after all, I am taking care of the health of the whole people. But why am I still forced to be a businessman? He reached out and pressed his eyebrows, then rubbed them, trying to smooth out the tangles. No, I still want to run away, flip the table, scream to the sky. What do you suggest? He slumped down weakly, his head turned to one side, and lay flat on the table. The middle-aged accountant bowed, tried his best to lower his height to his level, and whispered. I heard that you said during the last meeting that you would provide technical guidance to some workshops, the rich one. Huh? How do you know? Listen to what others are saying. The middle-aged accountant pinched his pocket nervously. There were dozens of gold coins in the wallet, sent by 3 different guild leaders. This amount alone was more than half a year's salary, and the purpose of giving the gift was just to let him say a word in front of Gretel. Come and see their workshop. Gretel became a little more energetic. He raised half his head from the table and looked at the middle-aged accountant. Which companies have applied for technical guidance? How much can they give? Is it a lump sum payment or continuous payment? Who will talk to them? The Slaughter Guild, the Liquor Guild, the Salt Merchant Guild, the Metallurgical Guild. The middle-aged accountant counted them one by one on his fingers. They were all workshops that Greet casually mentioned at the hearing that could carry out technical transformation. Generally speaking, dividends are paid to dry stocks, and dividends are settled every year, or every quarter. The magician can negotiate it himself. Seeing Greet's face immediately darken, he quickly added. If a magician is really not good at negotiating, the Magician Management Department will provide a negotiator to come forward on his behalf. You only need to pay a small fee. There are many magicians who hire them. Gretel's eyes lit up. Okay, let's start with the Slaughter Guild. I have to practice dissection anyway, so grab some dissection materials. Oro. Follow me up the mountain. They headed straight for the top of Igor Peak. There is still a laboratory in the Thunder Tower that is working tirelessly to produce bleaching powder. When the magician who presided over the production saw Gretel arriving, it was as if he saw a savior descending from heaven. He almost rushed to hug his lap. Little Gretel, when will this work end? It's so boring. And you see, the caustic soda solution produced is not easy to put away, and it is not easy to pour it out. We have accumulated several pools here. Recently, the entire parliament has caustic soda prices are plummeting. And that light air, if you're not careful, it will explode. Gretel, isn't that right? You can only use chlorine here and cannot industrialize other byproducts? This is too miserable. No wonder the price of bleaching powder is so high. It costs me 1 gold coin per kilogram. That, still needs to be done, and more needs to be done. A public health center has recently been set up, and a large amount of bleaching powder is required to purify drinking water, about 12 kilograms a day. Ah, the magician screamed. He dragged Gretel and ran out of the laboratory. Come on, take a look for yourself. See how much the Alchemy Guild charges for caustic soda. Greet was dragged by him, staggering all the way, straight to the Alchemy Guild. A level 2 magician dealt with him skillfully. Caustic soda solution? 1 silver coin per liter, you can deliver it yourself. What? The price has dropped again, Thunderhorn screamed. The alchemist gave him a blank look. Otherwise, what should I do? Tell me, Tell me, how much have you sent over recently? The guild can't consume it at all. The amount of caustic soda is only so much. To make soda ash, the strange smell fills the room. Without the bubble technique, it won't be possible. Don't dare to enter. Moreover, the fuel for boiling alkaline water is free. Does the pot for storing alkaline water cost free? After cooking it for a few times, the pot will become rotten. Otherwise, you can make them into soda ash yourself. We charge high prices. This is so annoying. The magician from Thunderhorn screamed. Gretel couldn't help but hold his forehead next to him. It's so miserable, it's so miserable. When you make soda ash, oh, sodium carbonate, do you still heat sodium hydroxide solution? No wonder the production efficiency is so low. You charge soda ash? Charge it at a high price. He stuck out his head. The alchemist glanced at him quickly, saw the 3 bronze stars and 4 white rings on the badge, and immediately became serious. Collect it? The amount of soda ash is large, we will collect any amount. Just say this from you. Gretel dragged his family back with a smile. As soon as he returned to the laboratory, he immediately laid out a set of glassware. The charcoal is ignited, the burned smoke is passed into the caustic soda solution, in excess. After the reaction is saturated, an equal amount of caustic soda solution is added, and finally heated and evaporated. Look, the soda ash is out, right? How to mass produce it? Try it yourself. Sell me the bleaching powder for cheap. Soda ash is also cheap for me. No problem. The magician's eyes at Thunderhorn immediately lit up. The amount of soda ash used in washing, printing, and dyeing, tanning, soap making, etc. is so large that the entire city of Neva swallows hundreds of kilograms a day without even burping. Following Greet's method, the caustic soda solution accumulated every day can be turned into soda ash and sold. The Department of Change has a workshop that produces these things every day, and now Thunderhorn can also get involved. The price is even lower than theirs, squeezing them to death. I'll organize manpower to try it right away. Don't worry, as long as we can really make soda ash on a large scale, I'll sell you the bleaching powder you want at a half discount. Brawl. Davila. Brittany. You guys, hurry up and get a room out. Customize copper pipes, set up a stove, get charcoal, and get ready. Then it's up to you. Gretel was in a good mood. Hey, money is earned and saved. With such an improvement in craftsmanship, 2,000 gold coins can be saved, right? If we visit a few more companies and upgrade the technology, the Department of Public Health will probably save money. Alas, in fact, the most expensive step in the bleaching powder production process is the electrolysis of salt water, in other words, renting the Thunder Tower laboratory for electrolysis. It would be great if we could generate our own electricity. We could set up a small hydropower station and set up a production line next to it. Other raw materials would not cost much. However, the only method of generating electricity that Greet knew was to use a magnetic field to cut a coil and generate alternating current. Electrolysis of salt water requires direct current. How to change AC to DC? Sorry, Gretel, said he didn't know. Oro. Feeling better today, I will try my best to write 6,000 words. The bonuses recommended above have been released, and now the collection has begun to grow negatively again. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews. Thanks to Abandoned Baboon for the 100 starting coin reward. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 288. Aurora Warden didn't just jump out at a shout. He is still at the foot of the mountain, working diligently and conscientiously, so busy that he even sticks out his tongue, anyone who wants to complete the purchase of soft furnishings for a new house in one day will be as busy as a dog. What's more, Aurora Wharton faced an entire mage tower. 12th floor. All furniture, facility, living supplies. All in one day. The boss will probably stay in the tower at night, and the apprentices will come in early tomorrow morning. When Gretel returned to the mage tower, Aurora was already exhausted. He was stretched out on his back on the carpet in the reception room, while 4 invisible servants, 2 on each side, were rubbing his legs. When he saw Gretel come in, he just glanced feebly and pressed his chin to his chest. "Boss, I really can't do it, boss, you should find a butler, really, you can't use me as a butler." "Thank you for your hard work." Gretel hugged his knees and sat down next to him. "After this time, I will definitely not let you do chores. Hey, otherwise, your old housekeeper can lend me your help for 2 days. "That's definitely not possible," Aurora shook her head, her ears almost touching the carpet in turn. "If you are not an extraordinary person, you'd better not stay in a place like the Mage Tower forever. Besides, he doesn't understand the Mage Tower. Hey, boss, let me tell you, you'd better find an older mage. I have no expectations for the future. For example, if I am stuck at level 4 for 20 or 30 years, I will not be able to move up even if I die. This kind of person has rich experience, is good at dealing with people, and will not immerse himself in research and neglect the affairs of the Mage Tower. He is most suitable to be a housekeeper. It's best if you can point him out and let him break through a level, ensuring that he will follow you wholeheartedly." To put it lightly, Greet rolled his eyes at him and lay down on the other side. "Where can I meet people like this? How long have I been in Neva City, and how many people do I know? Besides, I'm only level 3 myself, and if I bring someone up to level 4 or 5, who will be the housekeeper for whom? Otherwise, I'll ask the teacher to help introduce one." "Let's not talk about this anymore." Greet stood up. "Hey, Oro, let me ask you a question, can you feel the direction of the current?" "Isn't this nonsense?" Aurora replied lazily. He raised a hand with his fingertips pointing upward, and an arc of electricity suddenly jumped out. Then, from the tips of my fingers outward. "Isn't that what electric magic is all about? If it's lightning on a rainy day, it will strike from the sky to the ground dash. Evocation magic, cantrip, lightning shock. Launches an attack on the target, causing electric damage. What about this?" Gretel started to take things out of the space bag with great interest. Aurora turned half over on the carpet and saw Gretel taking out a bunch of coils, wires, magnets, rotating shafts. His movements were not smooth and even a little unfamiliar. "Pretend twice, think about it, pretend twice, think about it again. Sometimes, you have to stop and dismantle a part and reinstall it in a different way. Click, click, jingle. Boss, what are you doing?" Aurora was terribly sleepy. After a busy day, his whole body ached and he just wanted to go to bed and sleep. But the boss is still busy working mindlessly, so just keep busy, and he is not allowed to leave yet. "Boss, have you done it well? If you can't do it well, I'll go to bed. I'll see the same thing tomorrow." Yawn. Come on, come on. Wait a moment." Gretel tried to speed up. After another quarter of an hour of tossing, he actually came up with a strange thing. "Put on the handle and shake it hard, once, twice, 3 times. Huh." Aurora jumped straight up from the ground. He hugged his knees with his hands, curled up tightly, and leaned his head forward. After exploring twice, I still felt that it was not close enough, so I simply turned over on the spot, knelt on my knees, and put my hands on the ground. The upper body worked hard to lie forward, and the face was so excited that it almost touched the coil. This is dash. This is something he has never felt since he learned electrical magic. Whether it's the lightning summoned by the magician or the lightning falling from the thunder cloud, it all swishes and swipes. Extremely fast, extremely violent, flashing by and disappearing. But this one is different. As the shaft shook, the lightning rushing in the coil was obviously lightning, but it was a different kind of lightning. Wavering, changes come and go. It is not a flash of lightning at the fingertips of a magician, nor an electric ball restrained in a force field, but due to the operation of human power, it keeps flowing in the coil, endlessly. Aurora felt as if she had caught something, but at the same time she seemed to have caught nothing. He grabbed Gretel's handle and shook it with all his strength. After shaking it for more than a dozen times, I still felt it was not enough, so I simply pointed at the handle and whispered a few incantations. In an instant, the handle drives the axle, and the axle drives the coil, rotating at high speed. Gretel only blinked twice, and the coils in his field of vision were only after images. He reflexively reached out to block. Let me feel it. Let me feel it again. Aurora leaned forward and spread her arms, lying on top of the generator like an old hen protecting her chicks. Gretel couldn't use violence to drag him away, so he could only squat next to him and stare at the generator without blinking. Then, with a snap, all current returns to zero. The fuse is blown. Aurora was no longer in the mood to deal with this. He jumped up and ran out of the reception room frantically. I know. I know. Why? Gretel got up and chased out. Go out, turn around, go upstairs, and then, the door of the magic laboratory almost hits him on the nose. Aurora was shaking with excitement. Before becoming Gretel's follower, he had been working hard on research, planning to merge ether prison and electric shock ring to create a new magic. However, after trying and failing again, trying again and failing again, there is always a long way to go before success. Ether prison is constant for a period of time, and electric shock ring is explosive. It will explode as soon as it is touched. Aurora has always wanted to extend its duration, but no matter how hard she tried, she could only modify one burst to a maximum of 3. But now, he has found his direction. Aurora closed her eyes tightly and opened her arms in the spell laboratory. That current. The kind of current that he had experienced just now, circulating and changing. Simulation failed. Simulation failed. Simulation failed again. It's a little bit close, but it's still not right. How to ensure that it seems to be constant and constantly changing? Aurora tried selflessly. The electric ring around me lights up and goes out and becomes bright again. In the spell laboratory, even if the spell invalidation barrier was fixed on the 4 walls, it could not block the smell of burning protein in the room. After trying for an unknown amount of time, he suddenly opened his eyes, closed his arms, and pushed forward. With a sizzling sound, silver-white electric current wrapped around the eunuch prison, flashing like a dragon or a snake. Aurora ran out in ecstasy. When he saw Greet when he went out, he rushed forward and opened his arms. He picked up Greet and spun around twice. Boss. Thank you so much. Thanks to you, I completed this magic. Thank you so much. Boss, I will follow you for the rest of my life. Gretel, I understand the truth, but do you want to fix your hair first? Aurora's beautiful blonde hair suddenly turned into a big mushroom. The ends of her hair were curled and burnt, with black ash falling from one strand after another. Aurora had no time to deal with this. After many days of struggle, he was so excited that he jumped up and down. Still being dragged to the mirror by Greet, he explained his new magic to Greet while arranging his hair and foaming at the mouth. Merging these two magics together, it is both offensive and defensive, very useful. Fortunately, boss, you showed me this thing. Hey, boss, this thing of yours can generate electricity without magic. Greet smiled and nodded. Aurora jumped up. That's great. Boss, you finally don't have to rent a big laboratory for the bleaching powder you made before. Let's just find a place and make the thing you rotate bigger and make it clatter. It really doesn't work. Hire a few people to shake it, or hire some animals to drag it. This is really not okay. I have heard of thermal power plants and underwater power plants, but I have never heard of human-powered power plants or animal-powered power plants. Greet almost laughed, quickly pressed the button and said seriously. This kind of electric current cannot be used. Oro, have you ever felt that the electricity produced by this kind of rotation is going this way and that way, back and forth? Aurora thought for a moment and nodded hesitantly. With his level of magic induction, he could only feel this vaguely, not clearly. Greet said sadly. So this kind of current cannot be used. Oro, can you change this back and forth current into the one you usually summon, in one direction? Ah, oh. Aurora's beautiful blue eyes circled around and turned into mosquito coils on the spot. He tilted his head and thought for a minute, then held his head and thought hard for a minute, then squatted down and faced the wall with mushrooms for another minute. I don't know. Otherwise, fix that thing of yours and we can ask the teacher tomorrow. Archmage Carlyle is indeed a level 14 high-level mage. As soon as the hand-cranked generator started spinning, his eyes lit up. After feeling the rushing current in the coil for a while, he stood up and walked to the window, concentrated slightly, and pulled it with both hands. There was a pop sound, and a bright white arc suddenly exploded between his palms, undulating slightly. Then, explode, appear, explode again, appear again, explode again, appear again. Very interesting stuff. The great magician stroked his unusually fluffy beard and nodded solemnly. As for your question, leave the things behind and let me think about it for a few days. Gretel said goodbye and left. As he stepped forward, Archmage Carlyle held the hand-operated generator and knocked on the Thunder Lord's door. Regarding converting AC to DC, someone recommended me a diode filter, someone recommended a mercury rectifier. I didn't even know about this thing without Baidu. Hashtag my readers are all big guys. Hashtag. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews. Asking for various. Thanks to @Dark Mercenary from Another World Janet for the reward of 200 book coins. Thanks to @Nanming Kingyu for the 100 starting coins reward. Today is another 6,000 words, another update with 10,000 rewards has been completed. Only 3.6 left. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 289. What did Little Greet do again? The Lord of Thunder threw away the spoiled coffee latte art. He glanced at Carlyle's hand. There was no notebook, no roll of paper, that is, no paper. There was no research, no summary, just a weird-looking thing that looked like it was handmade, and it was delivered to him. Archmage Carlyle lowered his head and said nothing, moved the hand-operated generator forward, and placed it on the teacher's desk. The Lord of Thunder didn't look at it, turned his back to the desk, and continued grinding coffee beans, boiling water, making coffee, and frothing milk. 3 or 4 magics are operated together. They are all extremely low-level magics, but they particularly test the control ability. While controlling the magic, he muttered in a low voice as if talking to himself. Carlyle, do you think we have been too relaxed with this little guy? What has he been busy with in the past few months? He has neither advanced nor retreated. He has produced a lot of achievements. They are all irrelevant to the plasticity department. If he continues like this, he will almost become a man of the conjuration system. Teacher, what the little guy made this time is really of the plasticity department. Oh. The Lord of Thunder turned around. Archmage Carlyle bent down slightly, held the handle of the hand-crank generator, and started shaking it like a mage apprentice. As soon as the electricity moved, the Lord of Thunder stepped forward instantly. The carved half-table where he ground coffee beans was in the corner of the office, 5 or 6 steps away from the desk. With this step, he was already at the edge of the desk. The legendary mage leaned forward slightly and looked at the hand-operated generator without blinking an eye. After looking at it for a while, he suddenly stretched out his hands and tore off the wires surrounding the wooden board. Archmage Carlyle was shocked. Sparks burst out from the Lord of Thunder's hands. While tearing off the wire, his fingers loosened reflexively. However, he remained unmoved. He held one end of the wire with one hand, circled it several times around his fingertips, and ordered, "Continue." "Yes, yes." Archmage Carlyle responded in a low voice. He continued to crank the handle, round and round, faster and faster. The Lord of Thunder closed his eyes slightly and carefully savored the feeling of the electric current flowing back and forth through his body, motionless and silent. After feeling it for a while, a layer of silvery white light gradually emerged on the surface of the Lord of Thunder's body, connecting with the current on the monocle. The electric clothes fluttered gently, expanding and contracting silently, just like breathing. Occasionally, a piece of electric sparks exploded from above, fluttering in the room. In the eyes of others, it seemed as if it could explode on the spot anytime and anywhere. Archmage Carlyle was secretly shocked. However, he was reluctant to let go of this opportunity for close observation, and even refused to take a few steps back to use magic instead of manual work. He just bent over and shook the handle vigorously, while shaking, staring at the fluttering lay. After shaking it quickly for 70 or 80 times, I suddenly heard the teacher say in a hoarse voice, "Go out." The voice was extremely stern, even a little shaky, as if he was trying to suppress something. At the same time, the thunder clothes fluttered more and more, and lines appeared on it one by one, as if it would fly out at any time. "Is this going to explode?" A legendary master, even if it is not the explosion of the meditation core, but the explosion of the outer body protection spell, it is not something he can withstand. If you're lucky, you'll be seriously injured; if you're not lucky, you'll just die. Archmage Carlyle immediately fled. Before closing the door, I glanced back and saw that the handle of the hand-cranked generator was spinning rapidly without any wind, and the lightning robe on the Lord of Thunder had already shot out the first arc. Suddenly there was a thunderclap, the electric current surged, and the vision was filled with white. Archmage Carlyle closed his eyes subconsciously, and when he opened them again, the office was empty, with both the teacher and the generator gone. Only in the thunder clouds outside the mage tower, heavy thunder rumbled one after another, flying higher and higher. Archmage Carlyle leaned against the wall outside the door, sweating all over his face. It took him a long time to calm down his breathing and listen to the movement in the room. The Lord of Thunder's office is on the 376th floor of the Babel Tower, quite close to the top of the tower. The dull thunder kept rolling, and occasionally there was a big earthquake, as if it was exploding right above the head. What is the teacher doing? What did he feel about that strange current just now? What are you testing again? What made him unable to wait to go to a special meditation room and fly directly into the sky? Nothing will happen to the teacher, right? The more worried and anxious you are, the longer time seems. Archmage Carlyle's vest was wet with sweat, then dry again, and he went back and forth several times. Finally, there was a click in the office, the door opened a crack, and the voice of the Lord of Thunder came out faintly. "Come in." Archmage Carlyle walked in with a heart in his hand. Stepping into the door, the scene in front of me immediately changed. It is no longer the desk, bookshelf, coffee pot, milk jug, white porcelain coffee cup with gold rim, but the ethereal ground, clusters of dark clouds, sometimes falling branch lightning, cheerful rolling ball lightning. Archmage Carlyle knows that this is the spiritual picture that has been materialized by the legendary mage. At this moment, it appears outside according to the will of the master and can be directly observed by others with the naked eye. However, it is troublesome to interact with the physical world. Secondly, it is easy to be harmed by external enemies. Even the legendary mage would not use such a big move. As a disciple of the Lord of Thunder, Archmage Carlyle can only see his teacher's spiritual picture once or twice a year at most. He walked cautiously inside, observing carefully as he went. Soon he discovered something strange. On the ground, in the sky, in the thunder clouds, there are countless silver-white electric rings among all kinds of lightning. It fluctuates back and forth, extinguishing and then lighting up. Occasionally, a branch-like lightning strikes the electric ring. The electric ring lights up, as if it sucks the lightning in, and the cycle continues. Do you understand? The Lord of Thunder asked. Archmage Carlyle lowered his head and thought. I kind of understand, but... Then think about it slowly. The Lord of Thunder responded casually. The lightning in the sky suddenly disappeared. Archmage Carlyle felt his whole body sinking, his feet hit the ground, and the scene in front of him returned to the normal office again. The Lord of Thunder stood beside the large desk, holding the handle of the hand motor with his fingertips, making it circle around. This thing is pretty good. I'll keep it for a few days. By the way, what does the little guy want? Archmage Carlyle slowly repeated Gretel's request. The little guy said that for electrolysis, whether it is electrolysis of salt water, electrolysis of mithril, or electrolysis of other things, you must use ordinary lightning, and you cannot use this kind of direction that keeps changing. The Lord of Thunder hummed non-committally. He lowered his eyebrows and thought for a while, then walked from the desk to the window, then from the window back to the desk, going back and forth several times. Finally, facing the large floor-to-ceiling glass window, he pulled his hands, and an electric arc as thick as a finger jumped out of his palm and danced between the index fingers of his hands. The Lord of Thunder stared at the arc of lightning in front of him. On the monocle, the electric current flickered and flickered. After a moment, his right hand left the end of the arc, approached his left hand, and gave a faint stroke. Archmage Carlyle stood behind the teacher and saw countless blue-white fluorescent lights exploding in the palm of the teacher's right hand. Tiny and scattered, endless birth and death. At the same time, the same fluorescence erupted from the monocle, which kept closing inward, as if being squeezed by an invisible hand. After stroking, pause for a moment, observe, and do it again. After 3 or 5 rounds, the arc in his hand seemed to become thinner. However, according to Archmage Carlyle's induction, the arc in the teacher's hand seemed to have been sorted out, flowing honestly in one direction, no longer looping back and forth, but constantly changing flow directions. It can be done. The Lord of Thunder nodded, organized his words, and explained to the students. Add a plug, or something similar, to the current. The lightning can only flow in one direction, and the lightning coming from the opposite direction will be blocked. This is the principle. To make something like this, you guys go figure it out. By the way, you ask the little guy to write a paper and hand it in. What is this thing he made, how is it made, and why can it emit electricity? Then I contacted Arcane and sent the paper, and by the way, a reward was placed in my name for this thing. The amount of the reward. After thinking about it for a while, too little was not consistent with the status of a legendary mage, and too much was unnecessary. Well, just say something that makes sense. Anyway, the magicians of their own school dare not pay attention to his needs. Just 5,000 contribution points. By the way, please spread a message to the Thunderhorn first, so that our people can be more attentive. Yes. Archmage Carlyle quickly left. That night, Gretel received news that the Lord of Thunder personally called him by name and asked him to write a paper. What? 5,000 contribution points. The pen in Gretel's hand fell to the ground on the spot. He quickly leaned over to pick it up, touched it, and blew on it. Endless ink pen is a level 9 magic item. If it breaks, the loss will be huge. Although high-level magic items are not so easy to break, what if it happens? Oro, these 5,000 contribution points, should we earn it ourselves? It's just a rectifier. Such a high price? Although Gretel was not an electronic engineering major in his previous life, he still remembered that maybe, just installing a few diodes would be enough. Speaking of which, how are diodes made? He only knows that it can be purchased on the market. As for how to make it specifically, it seems to be related to silicon, quartz, or something. Is it going to be melted? But when it is melted, it becomes glass. He doesn't know anything about crystallization and crystal phases. Do you have an idea? No. Then let's forget it. Aurora thought about the weird-looking thing yesterday. The boss worked hard to dismantle it and took a long time to get it done. She was very dissatisfied with Greet's craftsmanship. Boss, let's write out the paper first. The paper requested by the Lord of Thunder has been published in Arcana, so the reward will definitely be indispensable. Think about the phlogiston paper last time, and the reward this time it will definitely be no less than last time. Ah, don't mention the paper to me. Greet made a loud noise, and his entire upper body hit the desk, feeling weak. Thesis, the coil cuts the magnetic field to produce electricity, so why is electricity produced? How far does he have to prove it? In this damn world, the microscopic world hasn't reached the atomic level yet. Is he about to get the electrons out? He can't do it either. He only knows how to copy the principles, so if you ask him to explain further, you might as well let him die. Oro, you write the paper. 3,200 words. I will write another 3,000 words in the evening, and I will have completed another update. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, please ask for all kinds of. And, I really didn't expect that everyone is so enthusiastic about AC to DC, commutators, rectifiers, diodes, and so on. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 290. The paper requested by the Lord of Thunder was written by Mr. Aurora Wharton, a man of many tools and a master of papers. The so-called ignorance is fearless, and ignorance is also happiness. Aurora wrote this paper very smoothly. Most of the ink is used to describe the structure of the hand-operated generator. Magnets, coils, cranks, wires. The only pitiable thing is that Aurora is not good at drawing. After wiping the drawings on the manuscript paper, the Rusk used to wipe the charcoal pencils piled up in a thick pile on the edge. After describing the hand generator, I finished describing the fact that this thing can generate electricity. At the end of the paper, Aurora also described the general characteristics of this new type of lightning based on his own feelings. Then, finish the whole text. When the paper was handed in, Greet wanted to sigh more and more as he read it. There are no 3 views of hand generators, and there are no standard mechanical drawings. Alternating current has no waveform, no current, voltage or resistance. This kind of thing, even if it has the reputation of a legendary mage, will be beaten back by arcane, right? Old, boss. Aurora squatted opposite him anxiously, looking at his face. Greet rubbed her temples. Forget it, I'll change it. He picked up the endless ink pen, brushed it, and started filling in the content. Alas, this 9th level magic item is good at everything, except for one flaw. You are already a high level magic equipment, so you should learn to write by yourself. Well. On the characteristics of hand crank generators and alternating current. Each magnet carries a magnetic field, and when the coil cuts through the magnetic field, an electric current is produced. Of course, the reason for the current generation still remains to be discussed. As the coil moves back and forth, the direction of the current changes. Different from lightning in nature and summoned by magicians, whose current direction remains unchanged from beginning to end, we call this kind of electricity alternating current. The strength of alternating current is affected by the strength of the magnet, the number of turns in the coil, and the load in the circuit. Fen wrote a lot and threw it to Aurora, asking him to add experiments and data. For the task of converting AC to DC, after waiting for the paper to be handed in, there will be a magician who takes over the task, taken advantage of, to come up with a solution. And Gretel himself has to face another imminent task. Trainees from various companies have arrived. Black Crow Swamp comes fastest. There were 9 people in a row, 1 carriage per person. Gretel was just wondering why there was one more person. When he saw the person clearly, he couldn't help but said with joy, "Master Lin En. You are here too?" "Yes, I'm here too." On Master Lin's shoulder, the black cat with white gloves jumped off the ground and greeted Gretel before its owner. Gretel bent down and shook its hand. "Mr. Trochka. Long time no see. I'll bring these guys over here." Master Lin En smiled as he watched greet the black cat. He tried to pinch its flesh pads, but was scratched off by the black cat's claws and immediately backed away. After the fight between the man and the cat was over, he smiled and explained. "By the way, each of these children brought a corpse. Do you have room to put it here?" Yes, Gretel jumped up, beaming. "Corpse? A corpse that can be dissected?" Black Crow Swamp kept his promise and actually delivered the body. "Don't worry, I will teach these little guys well for you. As for the morgue, there is so much. How can the P4 laboratory, which studies pathogenic bacteria, not have a morgue? Although there is no formalin, it is not difficult to refrigerate it at low temperatures. Special rooms, magic cooling, 1 grid for each corpse, have been specially set aside for a long time." Master Lin En gave an order, and 8 apprentices worked in pairs to carry the stretcher upstairs. Greet followed behind, chatting slowly and quietly with Lin. "Where did you go after the war? You didn't come back for more than a year. I asked Master Edgar twice and he didn't know your information. I was chased to the sea by a 7th level knight, and almost to the eternal ice. I'm fine. I have already chopped that guy down, and I found a good place on the North Island. It took me more than half a year to make him into a skeleton soldier. It's amazing, you can kill people 2 levels above," Greet instantly responded with a look of admiration. This kind of close to evenly matched, both sides are prepared to pursue and kill, but unlike that time when he faced each other and breathed fire, he was able to catch everyone by surprise. "Where is North Island? Is it particularly cold?" It's okay, but the nights are very long and the days are very short, so they are very friendly to us necromancers. The only disadvantage is that there is not much to eat. They are all seal steaks, venison steaks, and various fish. After living here for half a year, I've gained a lot of weight. I really didn't see this." Greet looked him up and down. Lin En's face was still shriveled, at best, but her cheeks were no longer sunken. "Speaking of being fat, Mr. Trochka is really fat. His hair is shiny and smooth, and every hair is moist." He shook his head helplessly and opened the morgue door. Lin En immediately stepped forward and shouted to the apprentices. Line up, line up. Don't rush. Carry them in one by one. Hey, that black-haired one, what about you? Keep your hands steady, don't smash the stretcher. Don't drop the body on the ground. It's not you. It's broken and it can't be repaired. Gretel. There is nothing wrong with the truth, but I always feel like something is wrong. In order to prevent himself from hearing more harsh words, he dragged Lin An from the morgue to the door of the Mage Tower in one breath. In addition to the queue in Black Crow Swamp and the Mage Tower, there are already several more carriages. The School of Change brought 2 large boxes containing acids, bases, salts, various metals, and various alchemical materials and products. When they saw Gretel coming, they asked where the alchemy laboratory was and if they could move the things in. The things brought by the Conjuration School are much lighter. It is a small leather suitcase, which is filled with the blood of monsters, magic plant juice and magic crystal powder. It is said that it is used to prepare ink and write scrolls. 6 priest apprentices from the Temple of the God of War, working in teams of 2, carried 3 large boxes. The wooden box fell to the ground, and the sound of metal colliding inside made a shiver run down Greet's spine. Are you all an orthopedic surgeon? The spring water temple basically came to the temple with a wave of hands. If everyone hadn't taken out 2 large bottles of holy water, Greet would have thought that they came to the temple empty-handed. However, the most beneficial and cost-effective one is the Order of the God of Nature. 4 apprentices, 2 men and 2 women, each carried a cage of rabbits. Looking at the way the rabbit cage rattan was bent and tangled, there were no traces of processing at all. Gretel strongly suspected that they had grown the rattan themselves, made the cage themselves, and gone to the wild to lure the rabbits in, and coax them in one by one. As for the girls in the religious sect, they are only more powerful than the boys. A petite little priest's apprentice had 2 sheep tied to a straw rope in his hand. The straw rope hung down in a curve, and the sheep followed her obediently. Another female apprentice with a strong body and who looked to be at least 170 plus was holding a big wild boar with a cane. Behind the wild boar, there were 2 sows and 3 or 4 piglets, following them in a string, humming, without even needing to tie them up. Tie it up. Girl, you must have maxed out your animal affinity points. By the way, everyone else came by car and horseback, but the 4 of them came on foot. As expected, he ranks first among all spellcasters in terms of saving, Kyan, money, swan. Fortunately, in Gretel's Mage Tower, the beds, quilts, bookcases, and wardrobes in the apprentice rooms were all purchased together, and meals were also provided together. We will not let the priest apprentices of the Order of the God of Nature wrap themselves in blankets, sleep on the floor, and eat their own black bread. Not only that, even the hand-washing clothes you change into before entering the laboratory and the isolation gown you wear in the laboratory are all of the same style, which makes them look dirty. It has no advantages other than easy cleaning. Greet himself no longer felt it. As the saying goes, if you enter an abalone shop, you won't notice the smell for a long time. This old man entered the door of medicine and won't notice the ugliness of washing your hands and clothes for a long time. He clapped his hands and pointed at the neat hand-washing clothes in the cabinet. Okay, everyone, 1 piece each, choose the number that suits you. The men's locker room on the left and the women's locker room on the right. Change out and I will teach you how to put on the isolation gown. So ugly? I don't want to wear it. Immediately there was a groan from the crowd. Greet glanced over and was happy, he knew this kid. Wasn't he the one who was with the black-haired one when they were moving the corpse? The little guy has bulging cheeks and a little baby fat. He looks like he is pampered. This really doesn't look like a necromancer, but it doesn't matter, stay a few more months and you will become like Lin and the others. Gretel was thinking erratically, not particularly feeling that His Majesty was being challenged. Don't want to wear hand-washing clothes? When they got this thing, there were a lot of complaints. Complaining about the unsightly appearance, complaining about the thick material, complaining that the elastic band on the waistband of the pants is too loose and easy to fall off, oh, and complaining that the elastic band on the waistband of the pants has broken at all, and there is a rope inside, and I have to tie a knot myself. If the head nurse in the operating room hadn't been too majestic, I'm afraid these little doctors would have said more weird things. However, Someone came forward to complain, and there was an immediate commotion among the apprentices. Fortunately for the girls, the two girls from the Order of the God of Nature had already turned to their appropriate sizes and went into the dressing room hand in hand. As for the male apprentices, especially those with particularly tender skin and tender flesh, and particularly good quality clothes, quite a few of them stood still and refused to move. The apprentices glanced at the little fat man and then at Gretel, probably waiting for a fight with Gretel and depending on the direction of the wind to decide their actions. Gretel didn't intend to take action himself. Black Crow Swamp, shouldn't your own people take care of it? He glanced aside. Lin An's face dropped and he shouted loudly. If you don't want to wear it, get out. Whose disciple are you? Get out and let your teacher lead you. He pointed with his hand, and a black light came out of his hand, and the little fat man was thrown out of the door. The next moment, a field of white bones rose up from the ground outside the locker room, intertwined with each other, and locked the little fat man in a cage half as tall as a man. It was the characteristic bone prison of the necromancer. For an instant, the entire buffer room was trembling and silent. Greet was overjoyed. Master Lin En. Will you stay here? By the way, help me take care of these apprentices. 3,000 words. Got another update. There are only 2 more and it's all over, blah blah blah. Little Greet's apprentices, coolies, are also in place. Now we can advance a series of subplots, and finally summarize them at the health center. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews.